Something's been bothering me about the Apple Vision Pro, and that is that I have had so many disagreements with almost every review that I have watched, and that's not surprising. The Apple Vision Pro is one of the most insane products that I have ever used, and it's really hard to convey what it is like using this product without someone else actually using it. It is, in my opinion, a combination of mind-blowing hardware and software that, once you use it, you understand why Apple might be onto something here, and why spatial computing and the Apple Vision Pro is probably the next big thing. But there is one thing holding this headset back. And you don't even need me to tell you what it is. You already know. It's the price. It starts at $3,500, and it is expensive and, quite frankly, prohibitive to users that want to try out this device. Even if you believe in the future of augmented reality or virtual reality, or as Apple calls it correctly, I believe, spatial computing, there's a good chance that maybe you can't afford this device. Thankfully, our friends at XREAL sent over their more affordable XREAL Air2 Pro glasses, which offer a great look at the future of augmented reality and spatial computing. And instead of being packed into a big, bulky, heavy headset, they are as slim and lightweight as a normal pair of glasses. The best part about the XREAL Air2 Pro is it already works with all of your favorite devices, including your iPhone and your Mac, with just a simple USB-C cable connection. Even with just a small phone in your pocket, you can simulate a huge 130-inch size display with a small pair of glasses, so kicking back and watching movies or even a YouTube video with this is such a nice experience. One great feature on this pair of glasses is the electrochromic dimming levels, where you can switch between 0, 35, and 100%. So if you're watching a movie, you can completely black out your surroundings, or if you want to be more aware of your surroundings, you can instantly switch that on the fly to let more of the real world into your view. My favorite feature has to be the virtual Mac displays, though, with the Nebula app for Mac. You can turn your Mac into a 3-monitor setup, adjust the size of each monitor, the distance, and even the viewing angles. With just a pair of glasses in your pocket, you now have a 3-monitor Mac setup that even more expensive headsets can't give you right now. Paired with an XREAL Beam, the XREAL Air2 Pro brings you into the era of spatial computing, allowing you to place windows to the side, anchor the display in front of you, or have the display smoothly follow you whenever you turn your head. And the XREAL Beam further unlocks even more connectivity, allowing you to connect your existing gaming consoles, so you can play with a huge virtual display projected right in front of you, or even kick back, lay down, look up at the ceiling, and play your games. It's a really great experience. So to join the era of augmented reality and spatial computing today, check out the link in the description, and thank you to XREAL for sponsoring this video. All right, so now that we got the elephant out of the room talking about the price, and maybe we'll even talk about that later in the video because I do think people got that wrong as well, let's talk about the hardware of the Apple Vision Pro, because honestly, I think it looks great. I think this looks like something out of a sci-fi film, and I mean that in the best way possible. The Apple Vision Pro is clearly the sleekest looking headset on the market today, and it is built with premium materials like aluminum and glass. It is really futuristic looking, and it's not even just futuristic looking, it is futuristic. It is covered head to toe with cameras and sensors and all sorts of tech. And while previous notions of VR or AR headsets might convey a dorky nature that, you wouldn't want to use in public, a lot of people tried to prescribe that to the Apple Vision Pro too, but I would say that sentiment is far from true from the Apple Vision Pro. But in my experience, I think these users are overthinking it. I don't think you need to be afraid to wear this in public, in most cases, right? Like, if you're wearing this in a coffee shop, it's a pretty great experience. It's not as scary as you think it is. Maybe it's the Apple marketing or the Apple design or the genuine interest from Apple users that just love their Apple products, like their iPhones or their iPads or their Macs, right? But I have worn this headset outside many times, and I've had a lot of people come up to me and they don't look at me weird, or maybe they do a little bit because they're like, what is that? But they honestly get excited when they see this headset. People ask me, how does it work? How does it feel to wear? What are the apps like? What are you doing on that headset right now? And should I get one? So for like the past 2 weeks, I feel like every time I've used this in public, I've almost done like a mini review to everyone that's kind of come up and talked to me about it. And people have even asked to take photos with me or of me while wearing the headset, which is kind of crazy how much hype this thing is generating for such a niche product right now. But I imagine it's very much like owning the first iPhone. People know what this technology is, and rather than be afraid or repulsed by it, they are excited by it. Unless it's on the internet, then people will make fun of you, because if I go through my comments, people make fun of me for like the dumbest things. So I'm sure people will make fun of me in this video too, saying what a dork, but I don't care. I'm making a video, you're watching it, you're the bigger dork. Now, there was another big fear I had when I watched the initial reviews for this headset, and that was that the Apple Vision Pro would be too heavy to wear for long periods of time. And while I won't outwardly say that these opinions are wrong, I mean, fit and comfort is subjective. What I find comfortable or what I can tolerate to wear for long periods of time is gonna be different from another person, and I totally get that. What I will say is that, again, based on earlier reviews, they made it sound like this headset was impossible to wear for more than 2 hours, especially with this default strap that I have right here. I believe this is called the Solo Knit Band. I've heard a lot of reviews say that this thing was like uncomfortable to wear for like 30 minutes of use. But what I have found from these reviews is that, at least for me, they have largely overblown the comfort level in 2 areas. Again, the first is the fit. The Solo Knit Band, I think, provides the best experience for the Apple Vision Pro. I don't know if my head is shaped weird, it probably is, or if I'm carrying so much childhood trauma that wearing a 1.3 pound headset without the support of a top strap is just child's play, because I'm just that mentally strong. But I really don't mind the fit of this headset compared to other headsets I've used in the past. I actually, and I'm gonna catch flack for this is probably the most comfortable headset I've worn overall. I'm not saying it's not heavier, but I've used devices like the PlayStation VR and the Oculus Quest 2, and those devices I would always have to take off after 2 hours of use. I wouldn't say those devices were too heavy either, but it was because the headsets just didn't breathe well, and both of those headsets induced motion sickness on me, and by the time I was in them for even like an hour, I was like flop sweating and ready to take them off. I haven't even used the optional dual loop band attachment that came with the Apple Vision Pro. Look at it, it's still in the cardboard. And I don't think I will. The single strap, for me at least, provides the optimal level of comfort, and it lets me take the Apple Vision Pro on or off very quickly and then make small adjustments throughout my wearing of it with the fit dial. And I believe that's why Apple really went with this strap as the default choice, and I really like it. The other thing that I don't think gets praised enough with the reviews, and another reason why I find this headset more comfortable compared to other headsets, is the pass-through mode. Now, this is how you see the outside world through the Vision Pro's camera system. Now, I do think one area that earlier reviews kind of praised it too much was how good it looked compared to like Real Vision. Like, it doesn't look as good as Real Vision. It isn't, right? It's clearly a camera, but what I will say is that the pass-through on Vision Pro is good enough that when you're using it for a while, you kind of forget what the real world looks like. And the main reason for that is the ultra low 12 milliseconds of latency. I have worn Vision Pro a lot since my last video, and this is probably one of the rare situations where I'm sitting down and I'm recording a video where I haven't been wearing this headset. And there's some use cases probably where maybe this headset wasn't even intended to be used in where I did use it. But one thing is clear, during all my experience using the Vision Pro in my home or at a coffee shop or even outside, when you wear this headset, you can navigate the real world. I had no issue walking around with this headset, going upstairs, grabbing real world objects, making coffee, or even eating with it on. Once you use the Vision Pro while eating a messy, greasy sandwich, trust me, you will start to see the appeal. You will see the vision. And again, that pass-through mode, it's not real, but when you're in that headset for a while, you kind of accept reality, which is jarring when you take it off because you're like, oh, here's actual reality. So if you were scared off from the first review saying this headset was maybe too heavy or uncomfortable to wear for long stretches of time, I will say, obviously, your mileage may vary, but it might surprise you how long you can wear this headset for. And while it's definitely heavier, right, like the specs don't lie, the excellent breathability and the lack of me getting nauseous wearing this headset makes this experience a more comfortable headset than the others when you add everything together. Now, another misconception with this headset is not taking into account how good the tech is in here. This is not a Quest 3. This isn't a Quest Pro. It is way above that. Each eye in here has a micro OLED 4K display that, for the first time in a headset, eliminates that windowed screen door effect that every other headset has. You cannot see individual pixels on this headset, and it's one of the highlights for Apple Vision Pro. This is a Retina display, even in the first generation. It is one of the biggest advantages for Apple Vision Pro because there's no downside to viewing content or working in this headset. It's actually an enjoyable experience to browse Safari or look at photos or videos or just kind of put your apps all around and read through them because the fidelity of text and media just looks so good. It is a headset you want to be in. I can't stress that enough. I want to use this thing. And with other headsets I've had in the past, there might have been maybe like a game I wanted to play on it, but spending any time in that virtual interface was not something I wanted to be in. I wanted to get past that point as quickly as possible. I didn't want to navigate in something like a Quest. It was downright frustrating. But with this, the navigation is fun and it's playful. And it looks good. Now, the obvious use case for such great OLED 4K displays is watching movies or TV shows. I really love the Apple TV app where you can kind of simulate being in a virtual cinema and even pick the section of the movie theater you're sitting in. I have rewatched some movies here, especially older movies that I have never seen in a movie theater before, like watching the original Star Wars on Disney Plus in Tatooine is so immersive and the experience is really cool. And then the movies themselves just look stunning. Like this is the best visual fidelity I have ever seen these movies in, and I've watched them so many times at this point. It is the best way outside of an actual movie theater that I have watched movies. And honestly, based on some of the movie theaters I've been to, the display technology in here is even better than a standard movie theater projector. The one thing I don't see talked about enough though is a downside, and that is the lens glare when watching these movies. HDR movies in particular, in that virtual dark cinema mode, really lends itself to showing you lens glare on the Vision Pro's pancake lenses. It's not a deal breaker. I still enjoy watching movies this way. I would still pick this as a device to watch movies on, but it is the one glaring issue, forgive my pun there, that I've had with visual fidelity on the Apple Vision Pro, which otherwise at every other use case has felt almost perfect. So that is one downside that I did want to highlight in this video because it's the truth. The whole truth and nothing but the truth from Greg, which is the truth. And the truth is this battery. Maybe not the best design compared to other headsets, right? It's external. It attaches with this braided cable to the Apple Vision Pro headset. It has like a magnetic attachment that you twist and lock in. Now, most of the time, it's really not a big deal to just slip this battery into your pocket. And this wire to battery setup is very strangely retro, right? It's like having an old iPod or iPhone with headphone cables running directly up to your ears. But it is clearly a design flaw. But most of the time, I don't find wearing it that big of a deal. The bigger problem, I think, is the very limited battery life, which has at max about a 3-hour charge, but I've been able to drain the battery in under 2 hours when using multiple apps and screen recording at the same time. The one positive thing I'll say about the battery is, hey, it's nice to hold and it actually does charge pretty quickly. So if you need to charge your Apple Vision Pro for like 30 minutes, you get a lot of percentage out of it. And then the one kind of misconception I want to say about this battery is I see a lot of online comments making like the same comment over and over again. I don't know where this originated from, but everyone brings up this use case of using the Apple Vision Pro on a plane. And they're like, well, good luck watching your 3-hour movie when you only have 2.5 hours of battery life. I don't know if you don't fly that often, but when's the last time you went on a plane and they didn't have a power outlet in the seat? So yes, you can obviously use your Apple Vision on a Pro to watch a ton of movies, especially an international flight. They're gonna have a power outlet in the seat. And if all else fails, a USB-C battery pack really works well connected to one of these, and they extend the battery life even longer. So there's ways to extend the Apple Vision Pro's battery life. But let's get to the meat of this, because while I could probably spend a whole hour, I don't know how long, this is such a new product, but I could spend a long time on the hardware for Apple Vision Pro. Let's talk about the software, because that is the most mind-blowing experience I've had with this headset, and it really is the thing that changes everything. Vision OS at first glance is simple. You press the digital crown, you're greeted by a row of apps that, as of right now in Vision OS 1, you can't even reorganize. And to control Vision OS, You use your eyes and your hands to select something from an app to a back button or a small button. Again, you look at it with your eyes and then you pinch your fingers together. My first experience with this was, well, magic. The headset's eye tracking could track my eyes, and the downward facing cameras registered my finger pinch like a tap on an iPhone or a click of the mouse on my Mac. The second magic moment was seeing these apps floating there in a real world environment. I could see a video playing or my Twitter feed, Safari, my photos, my music just floating there. Apps bigger than the size of my 65-inch TV just existing in this virtual 3D space. But the real magic started when I moved my app for a first time. By pinching the bottom bar, I could move the app back and forth on a 3D plane. My first time ever controlling an app like this, and it felt like there were no limits to where and how I could place these apps in my living space. But even that has been covered before. The most mind-blowing part of this experience, and what made everything finally click for me, is when I placed these floating apps around me and they stayed there. Even if I left the room, as soon as I came back, those apps stayed open exactly in the size, the position, and the orientation I left them in. And trust me when I say this, I know you're watching this video and you're listening to this part and you're going, what's the big deal? If you haven't used an Apple Vision Pro before, you have no idea how crazy this experience is. For example, I took the Vision Pro with me to another location 30 minutes away from my home. I came back, the apps that I opened were still in the same location. And as I moved between my house and my studio, I forgot that I had apps open in my studio. And when I came back to my studio, those apps were still there. And then when I came back home, the apps I set up there were still floating there. That is crazy to me. That is when things clicked, right? Spatial computing isn't a buzzword. It is a real different form of computing where those apps kind of exist in a virtual environment. It was almost like these apps were physical devices that I could interact with rather than digital ones on a screen. And I know it's all digital, but in a way it felt very analog. And I mean that in a good way, right? It felt like these apps had presence. It felt like they were their own devices, not tied to this headset. It is one of the hardest experiences to convey to someone watching this, but it's also what separates the Vision Pro from other headsets, even besides the insane hardware specs that this thing has. The way that Vision OS works and the way that Windows work in a virtual space isn't augmented reality or virtual reality. It is spatial computing, and a lot of the other headsets aren't doing that, right? There is flexibility of moving and placing these apps around you. Not just one app or 3 apps, but multiple apps all around you in multiple rooms. It is an eye-opener. Not multiple rooms, multiple locations even. That is something I couldn't fathom the first time I used this headset. And the more I've used it, the more I've been blown away by just how good those apps stay anchored and locked in place. I don't even know how Apple's doing it. I couldn't even imagine to begin the technology involved in that entire process. Traditional computing devices have always been constrained by screen sizes, and there's a limit to how many windows you can comfortably display on one display. While Vision Pro may require some head turning and rethinking of how you place and use apps, it is the first device that truly feels like an infinite canvas. It also starts to solve an issue that I've had for a while now, and it's something I've been aware of. I have so many devices that I use. I have an iPhone, an iPad, a Mac, an external display for my Mac, and they all have these own unique interactions. And listen, I don't think the Vision Pro is ready to replace an iPhone or a Mac, but it does consolidate a lot of those use cases into this headset. And what it might be ready to replace, actually, with even Generation 1 looking at this thing, which probably shouldn't be able to replace anything, is the iPad. The iPad has always excelled at being a consumption device, and in recent years it did kind of start to take the role of a productivity device, but it was never able to have a compelling enough experience that felt as productive as just working on my Mac. Vision OS, even in its first and obviously very limited software, feels much more conducive to real work. Like, giant windows all around you is a multitasking dream, and as a Mac user, being able to connect to my MacBook Pro and bring in a giant Mac monitor feels like the best combination of the Mac and the iPad working together. And in a strange way, visionOS is that. It is a hybrid kind of system of iPadOS and macOS working together, something that people have, quite frankly, been asking for years, a combination of those products. You just actually have to own a Vision Pro and a Mac to kind of utilize this experience. But one thing's for sure, I haven't picked up my iPad since buying the Vision Pro, so while Vision Pro may not be ready to replace your iPhone, it may already end up being ready to replace your iPad. Like, this thing is an iPad killer in my opinion. Now, I do want to say something else before we get to the end here, because I kind of started this off by saying how visionOS was like a magical experience the first time I experienced it, and it was very intuitive, but then something else happens. Something weird, because the more you use an operating system usually, the more proficient you get at it. But after learning how to use visionOS, that's when I kind of noticed something else happening. I was moving my eyes faster than my fingers could pinch. Like on a Mac, by the time I move my mouse cursor to select something, I'm already looking somewhere else to the next location before I move the Mac cursor again, right? I'm going to the next selection with my eyes. My mouse might be clicking on something, but my eyes are darting to the next area. On visionOS, that's happening now too. So as soon as my eye finds the target, well, before I can pinch, my eye is already racing to the next target, which obviously in visionOS, because your eye is the cursor, it causes a misclick. You click on something you weren't intending to click on. So at first, I didn't know the interface and I was learning it and it was easy. But as I learned it more, then I kind of had to retrain the way that I use a computer. I had to remember to look, click, and then move on to my next selection. So it's weird. visionOS is both a really intuitive user interface, but also a tricky one to learn. The eye tracking and gestures feel like magic, but they also require more thought to use than something like a touchscreen. There is definitely a learning curve to visionOS that I think might hold some people back at first. But as you do start to learn and then unlearn and then learn again, it does start to click eventually. Now, the biggest misconception I want to tackle with Vision Pro is the value, right? I mean, come on, let's get down to it, right? $3,500 headset is a lot. And then for my headset, I believe after taxes, I spent more than $4,000 on my model. And almost every mention of Vision Pro on my social media feed says, hey, this thing is not worth the $3,500 price point. This thing is a literal waste of money. And the top comment I see all the time is, why would anyone buy this when you could buy a $500 Quest 3? And I don't think that's fair. As a technological product, there is no other headset on the market that can compete with the Vision Pro specs. It is not even close. And more importantly, as I've tried to convey with this video, no other headset can capture the experience of what it is like to use a Vision Pro. The Quest 3 or Quest Pro for that matter don't hold a candle to this thing. Not only is it impressive how well Vision Pro and visionOS already work as a Gen 1 product, it is also impressive how forward-thinking Apple here was with the Apple ecosystem. A lot of the features we already know and love from our other Apple devices already work perfectly on here. So features like AirDrop, continuity, messages, iCloud, all these features already work, and even more powerful features being introduced on the Vision Pro, like the Mac Virtual Display, further extend itself into the Apple ecosystem. So it gives a huge competitive lead to this headset, because when you already know how iPad and Mac apps work, and you already know how these services work, you can integrate them into your workflow, and it's so much easier to use this headset rather than using a whole other platform that doesn't have a smartphone, that doesn't have a computer, that doesn't have a tablet, that doesn't have a watch, that doesn't have wireless earbuds, right? All these things add up. And that's what makes Vision Pro so compelling as a user in the Apple ecosystem. It already has so many features that we love. It doesn't have to build new features on top of it. It can take the features that we love and just use them. And as we covered before, is the headset expensive? Yeah, without a doubt. But to me, that expense is worth it over those other headsets. I've used those headsets before, and I wouldn't even regularly use them even if you gave them to me for free. Even if you paid me $3,500 to use a Quest 3 to work in, I don't think I could do it. And Vision Pro is the first post-smartphone product that I've used where I felt this excited about the future of computing, because the smartphone was a new experience. And up until this point, we've had better experiences as smartphones evolved. We've had additional experiences that build on top of the smartphone, like the Apple Watch. But I've never had an experience that was that different from using a computer or using a smartphone until I started using this thing. And that to me is worth it. I really have been kind of blown away by how this thing works, and it's made me rethink not only how I use a computer, but what is possible with computing. And, I have a vision now of where the future of computing could be in 10 or 20 years. And if you asked me that before I used this product, 2 weeks ago, I would say the future of computing is more smartphones. And I'm not so sure if that's the case anymore. So is it worth it? If you have money to spend and you love tech, listen, at Gen 1, it's maybe not the smartest thing to buy a Gen 1 Apple product, but I can't lie. The experience I've had with this product makes me go, yeah, if you're into tech, if you know the weak points of it, if you know this thing is gonna be replaced and it's gonna be, reiterated on for like the next generations, probably at a faster pace than something like a new smartphone update, then yeah, I think as long as you know that going into it, the Vision Pro is worth it. Right now, it is hard to review, and it's hard to convey how this experience even translates on video, but I'm trying to do my best here. But I do want to spend even more time with this device before I do a full review. But hopefully you found this video insightful, especially if you were on the fence about trying Vision Pro. I kind of encourage you to at least go try that Apple Store demo for free, because that doesn't cost any money, right? And if you're into computing and you're into this space, which if you're watching a Greg's Gadgets channel, I imagine there's some interest there, right? I would implore you to go try it out. But hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, please give me a like. If you want to see more from the channel, make sure you're subscribed. There's obviously going to be more Vision Pro content coming, or other Apple-related content or tech content, so you know what to do, right? Subscribe to the channel. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. You know what I'm doing right now after this video. I'm going back in. I'm strapping myself in, and I don't know when I'm coming out.